The car god purgatory. How terrible was the Chechen War? Let's talk about this modern purgatory, a conflict so brutal it was called the end of the century nightmare. In history, this car god war happened twice. The first, a disastrous humiliation for Russia under President Boris Yeltsin. The second, a brutal and decisive victory orchestrated by a new leader, Vladimir Putin. Though both were against Chechnya, their processes and outcomes were completely different, revealing the raw, terrifying face of modern urban warfare, the roots of conflict. To understand the war, we must understand Chechnya itself. Located in the strategic Caucasus Mountains, this region is Russia's gateway to the Middle East and a crucial transit point for oil and gas. For centuries, Russia tried to control it. The Chechens, devout Muslims known for their fierce and rebellious spirit, never surrendered easily. They were like the hard stones of their mountains, tough and resilient. Even during the Soviet era, they resisted. The real trigger came with the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991. As other republics declared independence, Chechnya, under its new leader, former Soviet Air Force General Djokhar Dudayev, decided to go it alone. Initially, Russian President Boris Yeltsin was too busy with domestic chaos to care. He offered Chechnya autonomy, but Dudayev refused, defiantly seizing Russian military bases and even shelling Russian representatives. Yeltsin had enough. In December 1994, he sent tens of thousands of troops into Chechnya, expecting a quick, decisive victory. The First Chechen War had begun. The First War, a Russian graveyard. The Russian army, inheriting Soviet might, was overconfident. Its defense minister, Pavel Grachev, famously boasted that a single airborne regiment could take the Chechen capital, Grozny. In a few days, they were walking into hell. On New Year's Eve 1994, Russian tanks and armored vehicles rolled into Grozny in neat columns as if on parade. The Chechen fighters, who had turned every building and sewer into a fortress, were waiting. They used a simple but deadly tactic. One team would disable a tank's tracks with rocket-propelled grenades. Another would throw Molotov cocktails from rooftops, and a third would gun down any soldiers who tried to escape. In less than 60 hours, the renowned Russian Maikop brigade was almost completely wiped out. The city became a graveyard for Russian armor. The war only got worse. Young, demoralized Russian conscripts, many straight out of training, were no match for experienced Chechen veterans and international mercenaries. They were hunted by the infamous Black Widows, female snipers who spread psychological terror. Captured Russian soldiers were often brutally tortured and beheaded, with videos sent back to demoralize their comrades. Humiliated and desperate, Russia abandoned tactics and resorted to sheer brutality. They used heavy artillery and bombers to carry out indiscriminate carpet bombing, reducing the beautiful city of Grozny to rubble. The final straw was a massive terrorist act. Chechen commander Shamil Basayev led over 100 fighters into a Russian town, seized a hospital, and took more than 1,000 people hostage. After a failed rescue attempt that resulted in heavy casualties, Russia was forced to negotiate and let Basayev go. By 1996, with Russian public opinion fiercely against the war, a humiliated Yeltsin signed a ceasefire and withdrew his troops. The First Chechen War ended in Russia's de facto defeat. The Second War, Putin's revenge, but the story wasn't over. In 1999, a new prime minister, Vladimir Putin, decided to finish the job. He learned from his predecessor's mistakes and changed the strategy completely. His now famous speech set the tone: "We will pursue terrorists everywhere. Forgiving them is God's business. Our task is to send them to God. If we catch them in the toilet, we will waste them in the outhouse." This time, there were no reckless armored assaults. Instead, the Russian army laid siege to Grozny and used aircraft and artillery to pound it relentlessly for 2 months before any ground advance. Putin also played a masterstroke, a strategy known as Chechenization. He turned against the extremists by backing moderate Chechen leaders, most notably the Kadyrov family. He gave them money, guns, and power to fight their own radical countrymen. This divided Chechnya from within, just like using a local warlord to fight the rebellion. The combination of overwhelming firepower and internal division was devastating. The Chechen resistance was broken. Their main leaders, like Basayev, were hunted down and killed by Russian special forces in the following years. In 2009, Russia officially declared the counter-terrorism operation over. The staggering cost, the price of these two wars, was apocalyptic. Russia suffered over 8,000 military casualties. But for Chechnya, with a population of less than 1 million, the cost was unimaginable. Over 200,000 people dead. The Chechen Wars stand as a terrifying lesson. The first showed how a superpower can be humbled by a determined insurgency in urban terrain. The second showed the brutal, overwhelming force required to crush that same insurgency. It is a story of despair, revenge, and a cost in human lives that is almost too heavy to comprehend.